So here we are again, and it's on the culture side of the website. Let's think, what's the website? So it's the BBC.co.uk, BBC Culture. Most people in the UK would probably know this person's face. They would see this face, and then immediately his name would come up, and they would probably say Lord Lucan. But not everybody. The younger generation will not recognize that person. So this photo, I think, is about 50 years old, perhaps in the 70s. Looks a bit 1960s to me, possibly 1960s. So his face or his image is really quite important. So not important, but memorable and noticeable to most people, I think. But let's scroll down and get onto the story. That's why we're here. So this is written by Fiona Macdonald, and this is the date associated with it about a week, no, 2 weeks ago, I should say, roughly speaking. And I read the title. So, Lord Lucan was found guilty of killing Sandra Rivet on 19th June 1975, but by then he had already disappeared. His wife was interviewed by the BBC in 1980. So the lady in the photo is his wife. That's not Sandra Rivet. So Sandra Rivet was the lady that died, and that's not this lady here. This lady in the photo is obviously his wife. Okay, so it's a little, to my mind, this is a bit of a mystery story. But Ruslan was just saying he doesn't think it is that much of a mystery. So it'd be interesting to see how it pans out. So that's a little bit of an idiom I've used there, sort of pans out. So that's a way of saying how it turns out, by the end, what happens in the end. What's our opinion of what happened in the end, or by the end of the story? Okay, so Michael, over to you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. The Lord Lucan, the Lord Lucan affair is a bizarre and horrific one, but on the face of it, there seems to be little doubt about the sequence of events. During the night of 7 November 1974, it appears, the British aristocrat Lord Lucan hid in the dark in the basement kitchen of his house in Belgravia, London. Planning to murder his estranged wife, instead he bludgeoned to death their 29-year-old nanny Sandra Rivet in a case of mistaken identity before then attacking Lady Lucan. She managed to escape and raise the alarm, and in the meantime, Lord Lucan fled, presumed by many to have jumped into the sea near New Haven and drowned. He has never been found, although there has since been reported sightings of him across the globe on every continent except Antarctica.
Yes. So Antarctica, very few people live there to start with. That's a strange place.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, anything in there that's interesting or peculiar?
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Mm, House, I don't know the pronunciation of Belgravia, House of
That's pretty good. So Belgrave, we say Belgravia.
Belgravia.
That's like Gravia. And whenever that is known to be a very well-to-do area, well-to-do. So it means the people who live there are wealthy and the properties are expensive, generally speaking. Belgravia, in that part of London. London.
Yeah, estranged.
Yes, that was good. That's exactly how it said. Estranged,
And
estranged.
estranged, what does it mean? It's like extravagant or estranged.
No,
No.
It's sort of it's not exactly divorce, but it's not too far from it. So, if you're my understanding, if you're estranged from your partner, it could be a husband or a wife, it means you're still married, technically married to them, but you haven't seen them in a while, in a long time. They sort of disappeared, I guess. But having said that, let's just copy it and get the exact meaning because I must say I've not actually, I'm not 100% certain. Let's have a look. So, if someone's strange to you, I guess they're unknown, and estranged is something similar. So, an estranged wife or husband is no longer living with their husband or wife. So they sort of moved out, I guess. So if you are estranged from your family, it could be your family too, or friends, you have quarreled with them and are not communicating. But as it says here, it's a bit formal. You might sort of, it's a sort of a formal sort of state of affairs. Getting strange. So that's that one. And maybe this one next. Whoops,
Yeah,
that one there.
bal bulging. I
When
remember
you,
we, yeah, bulging.
yeah, so how did this be? So bludgeoned.
Blood, bludgeoned,
Yeah.
bludgeoned.
Oh, that's perfect, actually.
I don't
Yeah.
remember, but we came across with this word, and it's the meaning. It's like murder or
Yeah.
I don't
Yes.
know, knife or I don't know, bludgeoned. I
So
don't
yes, you're right. So let's have a. Oh dear. Let's have a look again. Bludgeon.
remember.
Let's see what comes up. Let's see how gory. So gory is a sort of a blood and disgusting thing. So verb to bludgeon to to bludgeon someone means to hit them several times with a heavy object. So it doesn't mean they're dead, but it means they've been really badly hit. But they could have been bludgeoned to death, which would mean they are dead, of course. So if someone bludgeons you into doing something, they make you do it by behaving aggressively. So in this to use it this way, they're saying they're just forcing you to do something verbally, not physically. But often when you say bludgeon, it's to be hit with a heavy object. So instead, he bludgeoned it to death. It says here he's 29 years
Bludgeoned.
old.
They're 29 years old, Nene Sander, mistaken.
And the name, I'm pronouncing the name as Sandra. That's a fairly common. Sandra Rivet. Rivet. That's,
Sandra Rivet.
yes, Rivet. That's it. That's good. Unusual surname.
Yes. Perfect.
So New Haven is a port on the coast. It's reasonable size, but it's not huge. So it's not too big, but not too small. And then it says here that he may have drowned. I think when you said it, it sounded a little bit, it didn't sound quite right. So drowned, drowned. Should we just say it once again? Maybe. Um, so he jumped into the sea near New Haven and drowned. We'll just let say it a little bit again. He jumped into.
Jumped, jumped into the sea near New Haven and drowned.
Yeah, okay. You drowned's perfect. Absolutely perfect. Maybe just New Haven. So New Haven, New Haven.
New Haven, New Haven,
Yeah,
New Haven.
yeah. Your first one was the best one, I think. But we don't often use the phrase, the name New Haven, so we won't go too much on that. And it says, and this is what you read out, of course. Is there anything else there? I think that was great. Good reading. Fantastic.
No.
So maybe maybe that very first line up to bizarre. So I'll read that back to you there. So the Lord Lucan affair is a bizarre, I'd say bizarre, Do you want to say the?
Bizarre,
Yeah, bizarre.
bizarre,
So
bizarre.
bizarre. So bizarre means very strange, peculiar, odd, but also um, I've got bludgeon back in there again. Bludgeoned. Thought I copied it actually. Let's try yet again. Bizarre accident. So very peculiar, strange. So something that is bizarre is very odd and strange. Let's listen to how they say it. That tend to be slightly different from how I say it.
bizarre, bizarre, bizarre,
Oh, bizarre. So what's the version of bizarre? And it means a Middle Eastern shop. So there's bizarre, and it means it's actually it's similar sounding, but it's actually a shop, isn't it? So freakish. Comment. Go back to our story. So here we are then. While I'm looking here, so anything that you noticed, Ruslan, that you want to go back over, or you thought was interesting, I should say, or you weren't sure the meaning, or anything that we haven't already gone over, Ruslan?
You know what, Tony? Yeah, the first sentence is after Lucian affair, FR, yeah, it's
Yeah,
we understand it's like a relationship or it's like a business or it's like an event, yeah, probably.
yeah. So it can mean both of those things. That's it. So
Yeah,
it can be so when you use the word affair, it can have this idea of romantic affair,
yeah.
or you've been unfaithful to your partner. So there's that idea of it, sort of sex or romance.
Ah, yeah,
There is that
okay.
side of it, but the other way it gets used into events or some sort of an
Event.
event, just as you said, so exactly as you said, actually. That's it. I think you've got it there.
Yeah,
So it
but
has those
in
two
these
meanings.
sentences, we can accept it's like two meanings, yeah, like
Well, no, it has both those meanings, and you
yeah,
have to just have to work out which one we're using it
oh,
here. But being as it's the one, two, three, the fourth word in, it's just
yeah,
saying it's the Lord Lucan business, maybe, or the Lord
um,
Lucan events from long
events,
ago. It's just in this case, it has to be
oh,
events
events,
because
yeah,
straight
okay,
away it's the first or the fourth word in, and so I think you can't really assume anything else. But if
yeah,
it said Lord Lucan had an affair, or Lord Lucan was having an affair, and then it
um,
talks about it, that's how you would know it was a
yeah,
romantic or sexual affair.
okay, yeah,
So in this
thanks,
sense, it can only be events of that meaning, really.
events, okay, thanks,
But as soon as you say affair in this way, it sounds something a little bit untoward, something a little bit naughty when you say affair like that in this way. But no one assumes, no one from that would take this romantic or sexual. It's got nothing to do with that. Of course, that may come into it later on, but in this sentence, it's got nothing to do with that anyway.
yeah, okay,
Okay, that's it. Okay, so there was the word raise here, but I just can't see it now. So it's Raise. Spell it correctly. Tase. Yeah, my spelling's appalling. That's what it. Yeah, I wish I could spell. There we go. Raise. So this is something coming up. Is the word here. So could you just say this word again, Pat, just for practice, Michael? So raise.
Raise, raise.
Yeah, raise. Yeah, that's it. And so that's homophone for this word here, raise. So you can't really tell the difference in these two words. So when you're listening, you don't know which it is. But as it's spelt out here, obviously we know immediately. Something to do with something coming up. Okay, so let's carry on then. It says there's a photo here. We could play this. Let's quickly play this and see what happens. This looks like a little clip here.
Well, our inquiries will continue. We're still looking for Lucan all over the world, and until these sightings run out, we'll continue to follow everyone up.
Could I ask you, do you think that Lord Lucan is still alive?
Personally feeling, I think it unlikely, but this doesn't affect our inquiries in any way. We must endeavour to find him alive or dead.
The theory Lord Lucan fled to Africa has been confirmed by the detective who led the Lucan inquiry during the 1980s.
I made a few inquiries around, and it was quite obvious that people were aware that Lucan wasn't dead. And the word was that he was in Africa.
That was quite simple. So the last guy seems to have been a policeman, possibly even this policeman, who investigated the situation. And he's quite clear that he was alive, but in Africa. Okay, so Ruslan, this is your little bit here. So over to you.
According to evidence and the fact that the hero went on the run, the case appears to be damning. On the 19 June 1975, at Rivers inquest, coroner's court took just 31 minutes to find Lord Lucan guilty of murder. Yet dig a little deeper, and there are more questions than answers.
Okay, we'll hold it there. So let me just read the little bit back to you.
Okay.
That might help with the meaning, etc. So just listen out for what it means for the moment. So, according to evidence and the fact that the Earl went on the run, so when they say Earl, it's sort of this. It's the same person that we're talking about. We're talking about this Lord Lucan chap, and this is another one of the titles that he has. You could say he's a lord and an earl. It's the same sort of thing, basically. Okay. And when it says went on the run, so do you know what that means? When it says went on the run?
Yeah, it's like escape, run away.
Yeah, that's it. So he wasn't under arrest or anything, but it was obvious that he disappeared. He got a bus, a train, a plane, or a car. He disappeared in some way or other.
Yeah.
So not literally running on his feet, but in some other vehicle or whatever. So I'll read from here on then. So the case appears to be damning. So that's damning, that one. On 19th June 1975, at Rivet's inquest, a coroner's court took just 31 minutes to find Lord Lucan guilty of murder. Yet dig a little deeper, and there are more questions than answers. So does that make sense? And does the meaning
only accept 2 words to be damning,
So if I just say it again for you, so damning. Yeah, you're getting closer. So if something's damning, it looks like I was going to say an open and shut case. So it looks almost obvious that this that Lord Lucan is guilty.
Okay.
All of this evidence makes it appear absolutely obvious, sort of obvious, that he is guilty.
Okay.
So it's almost as if, so if something is damning, it would be maybe they also found his personal knife with the blood of the victim on it. And he also found his glove, one of his own gloves that only he specially had made with his name on it, maybe, with blood, was there too. That would be very, very damning evidence. But of course, someone else could have picked up his glove. But I'm just adding these things that we don't. I don't know anything about the glove. I'm making this up, or about a knife. I'm making that up. So that's just a possible example of things that might be damning. So does that make sense, hopefully?
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
it looks almost blindingly obvious. Oh, it has to be him. But then
Yeah,
again, does it really prove it? Not really. I don't think so. And that was one word. You said two.
yeah, and
Yeah.
coroners.
Yes. Okay.
This is like a jury, yeah.
I
Uh,
think back then, yeah, I think there was a jury called back then. It was. But in
okay.
particular, you only ever have a coroner. A coroner's job, and has always been the coroner's job for many hundreds of years, is that he looks into deaths that were peculiar, unusual, that possibly shouldn't have happened. So if there's been an unexpected death, they have to look into it. The coroner has to look into it.
Uh,
So there's a sort of he just basically makes a judgment to find out, is this murder, or was it an accident or something like that, and he will ask different people. He will ask. I don't know how it was exactly back in these times. This is 50 years ago, but nowadays it's a case of, I think they have to ask perhaps the police. What do the police think happened? You might ask a doctor. Oh, did you examine the body? Oh, he had, and the doctor said, I think he had a heart attack. Well, in that case, oh, well, it wasn't suspicious. He just died. It wasn't expected. He just died. But it's not every death this doesn't happen at. It's just the one, sort of, in essence, the ones that are unexpected and a little surprising.
yeah, just double check, Tony.
Mm-hmm.
You were saying that back in the oldest day, yeah,
Yeah,
a coroner
yeah.
was looking after a dead body, yeah, a dead bodies.
Um, and it's still the case now. The
Okay.
coroner is a person
Is a
who has
person
a job title, I should say, perhaps.
job title. Okay.
And obviously, the person is the coroner, and he has to look into suspicious deaths.
Suspicious,
Deaths,
but
yeah.
how about is not suspicious death? Is
If someone plainly, uh, if someone was ill in hospital and they had
ah
cancer for 5 years, they wouldn't look into
ah
that. And they were
okay.
dying in hospital and they were expected to die. But someone dies in hospital, say, and they weren't expected to die, he shouldn't have died. Well, they would look into that one, I would hope. I believe they would anyway.
Mm,
So
yeah.
it's these unexpected, unnatural deaths, ones that you might immediately assume were murder. They would definitely look into it. But sometimes they have so it's a court, as in, and I think there would have been a jury at this one, and he has to make a judgment about if this does it need to be looked into further, or so I don't know even I'm not a legally minded person, but that's my brief understanding of it.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah.
he holds a session. It could be a case of that we just don't know, I guess, and I think he still has to make some kind of a judgment on that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes sense. Yeah.
So it's just looking into things that should working out, was he murdered or not, or was a lady murdered, of course, in this case. Let's carry on then.
Why would someone who was apparently squeamish
Hmm.
about blood choose such a brutal and violent method? How could he have mistaken a Revent for his wife during a prolonged attack? And why did Lady Lucan take so long before running to a nearby pub and shouting, "He's murdered the nanny, help me"? It all adds up to one of the greatest unsolved crime mysteries in British history.
Good.
Mhm.
So what's tricky there? What's the trickiest words there?
Yeah, there was, yeah. After apparently, yeah, we squeamish.
Yeah. Yeah, when you read that out at the beginning, that's perfect how you read it out. So
Oh, really?
squeamish.
Squeamish. I don't know
Yeah.
actually. Mm.
So it's basically some people hate to see blood.
Oh,
If they see someone who's cut their hand, there's lots of blood dripping off their fingers. Oh, they sort of say, "Oh, I don't like to look at that. I hate looking at blood." So someone who hates doing that or seeing that, I should say, and maybe if they have to prepare a chicken that's just been killed, they would hate to do that. Maybe so. That's someone who's squeamish. Squeamish.
squeamish. It's we can
Yeah.
say like a vulnerable, yeah, a bit, yeah.
Um,
I'm not
it's not
really.
too it's not too far from it, but it's not really the same thing. So let's
Mm.
just tap it in. The good old dictionary. So what happens? Squeamish. You can be squeamish about other things too. So if you are squeamish, you are easily upset and by unpleasant sights or situations. I didn't
Unpleasant sights. It can
yeah.
be even with the food. For example, if I don't like the smell of some boiled meat, yeah, I can say someone can say
Mm.
that I'm squeamish, yeah, or I'm
Yeah.
squeamish of it, yeah. I can say
Yeah.
even, yeah.
Maybe if you hated seeing dead animals, and maybe if an animal was then cooked and it's on your plate, that would be very sort of
Oh,
that you might be squeamish for that. Yes, I can see you might be. Yes. So if we look at the examples, I'm terribly squeamish. I can't bear gory movies. So a gory movie is a movie with lots of blood in it. Gory is a movie with lots of blood in it. The second example is I'm not squeamish about blood. And really, so that they often mention blood. So I think blood is some sort of thing, something that people are or can be squeamish about. So but it says here, easily sickened or nauseated as by the sight of blood. So easily shocked, fastidious or prudish, easily frightened. So I guess, yeah, frightened. Most people are, here we go. So squeamish about spiders. I think a lot of people are squeamish about spiders. I don't like them, but I can deal with them if I have to. I don't want to kiss one or anything, but I have to.
okay.
Here it says in the
For
Americans
example,
have it as overly sensitive. That's interesting. That's the
oversensitive.
American sort of slant on it.
For example, if
Mm.
does it sound the same in a nouns? Yeah, squeamish.
I am squeamish. Is it just adjectives?
Yeah, just adjectives.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so. Yeah.
okay. Squeamish, probably no. He's no, 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 no. Squeamish,
Mm.
no. Squeamish.
Thought it might be
Yeah.
another verb, squeamishly. Yes, I don't know.
Yeah.
So that might not exist. I think so.
Yeah.
So that's
Okay.
squeamish, and it then mentions here about blood. So generally, the word is squeamish is used next to blood. Really, in this
Mhm.
case, it
And
generally
yeah,
is.
from these sentences, we can say that the Lord was a swimisher of the blood. Yeah, we
That's what
know
it
that.
seems to be saying. I wasn't
Yeah.
aware of that until we just read this. Yeah, it does seem that the
Ah,
Lord Lucan was squeamish about blood.
yeah. And yeah, prolonged attack.
Mhm.
Prolonged.
Yeah.
It's
So it's got
yeah,
the word long in the
yeah.
middle. And so really just forget the pro and the ed. Just say long attack. So it
Um,
wasn't a 2 second thing. It went on for some period of time.
mm,
So whoever it was, let's assume it was Lord Lucan. He was hitting this lady Rivet for a long period of time. After all,
mhm.
she did die, so it wasn't just a momentary
To,
thing. And it wasn't a
yeah.
knife. It was she was bludgeoned, which is something heavy was hitting her. I don't even know what it was that hit her,
Ah,
actually.
yeah, because yeah, in first paragraph we found
Yeah,
out that he
the,
bloodished, yeah, like
he pretty much bludgeoned, bludgeoned.
yeah, he bludgeoned, he
Yeah, that's
bludgeoned,
it.
yeah,
Which meant she was hit
yeah,
with a heavy
okay.
object.
Running before
So yeah,
yeah, I would say I don't have
any
any
other issues?
questions here, any other questions here of it.
Okay. Did I read this one out? I can't remember now.
No, you didn't.
Okay, let me do it then. Okay, so maybe just sort of try to take in the story as I read it this time then. So why would someone who was apparently squeamish about blood chose such a brutal and violent method? How could how could he have mistaken Rivet for his wife during a prolonged attack? And why did Lady Lucan take so long before running to a nearby pub and shouting, "He's murdered the nanny! Help me!" It all adds up to one of the greatest unsolved crime mysteries in British history. It's interesting to say unsolved crime because in the previous paragraph, at the coroner's court, it took just 31 minutes to find Lord Lucan guilty. So they've already found who the criminal is. It's Lord Lucan, according to this. But by the second paragraph, he's presumably innocent again.
But
So in
I know the
law,
answer, Tanu,
yeah,
because
go on. Yeah. Mm.
a lot of thoughts about that he just ran away and they needed to catch him and then it would be like solved.
I'm not quite sure what you're saying.
Yeah. I said, for example, they call this event like unsolved because
Yeah, unsolved.
uh, they did not find him. Yeah, if they find him,
Ah,
they would say it's like, yeah,
yeah.
this case is solved. Yeah, but because yeah,
Mm.
probably he is alive.
Yeah, so to be absolutely strict about the meaning of the words, so if something is unsolved, it means we don't have the answer. We don't have the answer. So if you have a question and it hasn't been answered, is an unanswered question, then we don't have the answer to it. And unsolved is a similar sort of meaning. But I was just saying up here, they found the guy guilty. He's So that is a solution. That's the legal solution that the system of law had found at the time. And it only took them 31 minutes, which is an incredible finding, really. I would hate to be in a case where I was found guilty within just half an hour. What? You can't possibly hear all the evidence in 31 minutes. So it does seem a bit sudden. So I see what you're saying. Yeah, it doesn't seem fair. I would say it doesn't seem to be fair that he was found guilty, and he wasn't even at his own trial, and it only took 31 minutes. So yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah, so it is unsolved in the sense that it seems unfair. I would say it doesn't seem quite right. But technically, sticking to the meaning of the words, I'm being a little bit awkward then. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I'd say you're right, Ruslan. Okay, so let's scroll on then. So I'll read this little title here. It says, "One theory is that Lord Lucan was fed to the lions in a private zoo." Okay, so that to me reads like a quote further in that we're going to read now, hopefully, I imagine. So Michael, are you okay to read another section?
Yeah.
Yeah, over to you then. Thank you.
Both Lord and Lady Lucan's stories about what happened that night are questionable. According to the historian Alex von Tanzelmann, presenter of the Lucan Obsession podcast, it feels like there is almost nothing solid at the center of it that you can go on, and it's then very open to people's theories. It's one of those mysteries that is unsolved, and I think it's probably unsolvable.
Mm.
It also reveals much about the British attitude to class. Richard John Bingham, the seventh Earl of Lucan, married Veronica, a former model and secretary, in 1963. He was an Eton-educated professional gambler who, despite his lucky nickname, had run up debts and was facing bankruptcy at the time of the murder. When he disappeared, there were suggestions that he had been helped by wealthy friends, dubbed the Clement set after the casino they frequented in Berkeley Square. One of the most outlandish theories about Lucan's fate claimed that he shot himself, asking that his body be fed to the lions in the private zoo of his friend, the Clermont Club owner John Espinal.
Rums, I did not know that. Wow. Okay, so anything there that you want to ask about or talk about?
Uh,
Practice?
yeah. Some unsolvable.
Yeah, that's it. That's spot on. Yeah. So solvable and unsolvable. Yeah, that's it. Yes, you've got it. So you have another version of it over here, don't you? Unsolved. Yeah, you've got it. Unsolvable. So we can't find an answer to this. You can't possibly now find an answer to it. That's the meaning there, isn't it? I think. Yeah. Yeah.
In the last dubbed dubbed the
Yeah, dubbed.
Claremont dubbed the Claremont set.
Yes. Yeah, that's it. Your Claremont is fantastic. That's how I would say it, I think Claremont. Yeah. So dubbed normally means someone has given them this. Someone has given them this name. So someone else has given this group of people the name the Claremont set. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So dubbed means named, basically. Named. The only other way that I think this word gets used is I think traditionally, I don't know if this still happens like this, but when someone is made a sir, so when they're elevated to this sort of title, say So Keir Starmer is a Sir. He's currently the Prime Minister. So I think at the ceremony, when you're made a Sir, they say, "I dub thee," and they normally call you actually become a knight. And so a knight and a Sir are the same thing, as I understand it. So he's basically a knight, and they say dub. So I name the knight. That's the only other place they use the word dub in that sense, and it has the same meaning. I name thee knight. I dub thee. So it's Knight. I with the name. So this seems to be the wife's name. I think I didn't realize or forgot. I think so. I think the name Veronica I didn't quite hear it actually. I don't think so. Married Veronica. Just say that again for me. Married Veronica.
Married Veronica.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Yeah, that's great.
Maybe I stressed the short syllable Veronica. Yeah, it's
Maybe
common.
yes.
It's common in Ukraine. Yes,
Okay. I didn't
Veronica.
know
Yes.
that. Yes, yeah, that's great. Yeah, so there's different, it's the same spelling, I guess, essentially, but different emphasis. Yes. And so, what is Eton? It mentions Eton there. It's got a capital E, so it's a thing.
As I know, it's university. It's famous university.
Yeah, kind of. But really, when it's Eton, it's for children, sort of like kids. Really, it's before university. It's before university.
It's like school.
So,
Eton
in other
school.
words, you might go to Eton. When you finish Eton, then you might go to Oxford or Cambridge, something like that. So, if you Eton, so I think wasn't Boris Johnson Eton educated? I think so. As a child, he was at Eton, and then he went to one of the major universities, presumably.
Private school. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. So he's not too far from Windsor. That's not sort of West London, just west of London, I should say. And he did have this nickname, Lucky. Being a gambler, I think you do have to be lucky. Perhaps you do have to be lucky to be a gambler. So he was just called Lucky. So it's Lucky Lord Lucan. Some people might refer to him.
Bankrupt. How it's pronounced correctly? Bankruptcy.
I think when you read it out, you had it. Yeah. So pretty much bankruptcy. Bankruptcy.
Bankruptcy.
Yeah. Bankruptcy. Yeah. You're in banking terms, you're broken. That's how I always think of it. So you run out of money. You've run out of money, basically. Maybe the other one is so this is a famously wealthy area of London, and it is a square because it really is a square. There's 4 rows, roughly speaking.
Berkeley.
And it's spelt Berkeley, and there's a place in America spelt like this, and they say Berkeley in America, but when it's in England, we say Barclay. Barclay. Straight. The spelling's wrong, I know. So when it's in America, it's said the way it looks, but in Britain, it comes out as Barclay. So Berkeley Square. There's a song that has this in its title, and I think it's something like a nightingale sang in Berkeley Square. Some people might say that occasionally. A nightingale, a bird, a nightingale sang in Berkeley Square. Okay. What about outlandish? That's an interesting word. Outlandish.
It's bizarre.
Yeah, it's basically bizarre, sort of hard to believe, perhaps even ludicrous. Yeah, that's it. Outlandish. So almost unbelievable, pretty much. So about Lucan's fate, claimed that he shot himself, asking that his body be fed to the lions. That's nuts. That sounds unbelievable. That does sound outlandish, but not impossible. But why would you, if you'd shot yourself, would it matter if your body was then found? I don't know. It doesn't add up, does it?
Rich people. No.
Yeah, but it's a kind of a great way of saying, well, yes, he was eaten by lions, and that's why we can't find his body. He was eaten in the private zoo. Okay. That was fantastic reading. Oh, there was so this name up here. So I think this is his real name. So Lord Lucan is his title. It's not his real name as such. But he was born Richard John Bingham. So the surname is Bingham. Bingham.
Bingham. Bingham.
Yeah. So it's tricky getting to so that I'm sort of saying Bing, like ping or ring,
Bing.
but this is
Bing.
Bing. And then I'm sort of not quite saying ham. I'm not really saying ham at all, actually. It's more I suppose. Bingham.
Mm.
Bingham. I
Bingham.
suppose. Bingham. Yeah.
Bingham.
Maybe not quite that last one. So I'll try again. Let's do the whole winner. Let's do this bit here first of all. So Bingham. Bingham. Bingham.
Bingham.
Yeah,
Bing.
that's it. Yeah, Bingham. That's it. Do you want to say the whole name? So Richard John Bingham. Again.
Richard John Bingham.
Yeah, you're pretty much there. Yeah. So Bingham. Bingham.
Bingham. Bingham.
Mm.
Bingham.
Oh, you're losing it a little bit, but it is tricky. It's a weird. It's not an obvious pronunciation. Um, and probably a lot of people wouldn't be quite sure how to say that name. But yeah, so that's okay. And we won't talk about Alex von. I don't even know how to say his surname. That sounds German, doesn't it, or Austrian maybe. So yeah, great. Anything else that we might have missed, or anything else?
No.
I liked your Claremont set. That was fantastic. It's not obvious, the Claremont. So, Ruslan, anything you notice here that doesn't really make any sense to you, or pronunciation?
Yeah, but in the sense I understood that he was honored a lot of money, yeah, and he shoot himself, and he wanted his body to be fit
Yeah,
in to the line in a zoo, yeah.
that's what it
To
says. Yeah. So this last bit is a theory.
yeah, it's a theory,
Somehow,
yeah,
somehow this came out, this story, but it's not as if there's any evidence, as far as I'm aware.
yeah, of course, yeah. It's
Yeah,
like a sense of it, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Not
that's it. So it says he ran up debts and he was about
yeah.
to go bankrupt, and also a professional gambler. So there are lots of people who want to be a professional gambler. Lots of people who want to be it, but very, 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 very few really are successful at it because it's very difficult to be successful being a gambler.
But it actually does not make sense for me. For example, if uh, if he wants to just kill himself, why he wanted, why he did this crime? I don't understand.
Yeah, basically, you're saying the whole thing doesn't really make any sense, and I agree with you. Nothing makes any sense. It's crazy. The whole thing is a bit crazy. So I don't think we have the full story. There's something's missing,
But you
and
know,
that's go
but
on.
you know, but you know, sometimes I don't know legally,
Hmm.
but when you have a debt or
Dead.
someone you
Yeah, dead. Hmm.
debts, yeah, and if you, for example, killed or if you die,
Hmm.
your relatives must pay the debts. But if you maybe I don't know, it's my
Hmm.
I suggest my
Hmm.
suggestion, and maybe when you are still alive, it's your
Yeah.
debt. Maybe it's
Yeah, there's a lot of truth in that. Yes, yes.
and
While you're still alive, the debts are yours to sort out. But as far as
but
I'm aware, when you die, it depends on the type of debt. But I suspect because we're talking about I'm assuming there's a gambling debts. Being that it's one line later, it then mentions debts. Yeah, no, no. When you die and it's gambling debts, technically the debts die with you. Most debts, I think, die when you die. The only difference would be if there's some sort of a contract written out. I promise to pay this debt back, and in the occurrence of my death, you can take half of my house or the value of my home to pay off this debt. And that might be in a contract or something like words, something to that effect. But very few debts are written that way. So when you're in the West, often when you're buying a house, you have a mortgage, and that's basically a fancy word for a debt that's written out in a contract. And there's all sorts of legal lines in there, obligations. So that's a sort of a debt with a contract. Not most, I don't know. I suppose a lot of debts do have contracts, but this one sounds very informal. So not on a piece of paper, I would say. So he's just gone 7 in London. So if you've got time, Ruslan, do you fancy reading another section?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry, I forgot.
Yeah.
I have to go. Thank you for
Oh,
listening.
okay. Okay, bye-bye, Michael. Next time we're reading this again, actually. If we haven't finished the story, we'll carry on next time, next Monday.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. Okay, over to you then, Ruslan.
Yeah. A marriage gone horribly wrong. The public obsession with the case is sustained by ambiguities. The facts are just enough to make a narrative while leaving hugely transtellistic areas of doubt. Suggests the historical Rosemary Hill. If there were a murder trial today, the verdict wouldn't necessarily be a done deal. Argues one Tunzelman.
Yes. Yeah, that's good reading, I think. Then. Good, well done.
Not really. It was difficult.
No, some things are going to be difficult, aren't they? So, but no, I thought you gave a good effort. You kept going. There were a couple of words which are very tricky. So that one there's a very tricky word. Then just below it's another one. And so we'll talk about these words. But yeah, otherwise, yeah, it's very good. And again, this name here, I wouldn't know how to pronounce that name to be honest. But you've done very good. You did very well, though. I think. I'm guessing ton, then Zell, then man. That's how I would say it.
Tunzelman, yeah, like this.
Tunzelman, yeah. So I think so. Yeah, no, that's pretty much what you said, really. And the von bit is sort of a German title, and it really means of. So this person's name is of Tunzelman. So it looks like Tunzelman might actually be a place in Germany or Austria, perhaps. But I'm just guessing. I really don't know. I've never seen this name before, to be honest. Yeah.
Antonio, how about the last sentences about the meaning? If there were a murder trail today,
yeah. So that word there. So what's that word?
No, I just want to I just want to know about the meaning of the whole sentences. Of the whole
I think
last sentence.
that word there, I would say, is the crucial word in the sentence, or one of the crucial words. And when you said it, it sounds like you're misreading, I think. So I'll read it to you.
Okay.
So if there were a murder trial today, the verdict wouldn't necessarily be a done deal, argues von Tunzelman. So a trial, I'm sure you're aware, is
Yeah.
always held when there's some sort of crime has been committed. If they catch the people, there's a trial normally. So a trial is where they try to see who is responsible,
Yeah,
isn't it?
who is responsible,
Yeah.
yeah, of this, yeah,
But
terrible.
they're saying today. So if this sort of thing happened today, then
Ah,
he's
okay.
saying it would be a different result. He's implying strongly it would be a different result.
Ah, okay.
That's what it means. So when something's a done deal
Done
means
deal.
sort of what it says. It's not really an idiom. That is sort of pretty clear in its words, really. So when a deal is done, it has happened. Something has been agreed. Something has been settled. Does that make
Mm-hmm.
sense?
Yeah, yeah,
So,
okay.
so
Wouldn't,
when you
yeah,
agree something, you shake hands with someone, and the deal is done. A
yeah,
done deal. That's what it means. But here it's saying it wouldn't be a done deal. If the same thing happened today, it would not be a simple matter.
yeah, okay,
It wouldn't.
okay. Oh, for
So
example, yeah,
remember just to interrupt a little bit, just
yeah,
the very first paragraph. I think it was. I kept mentioning that it was a 31-minute trial. So basically half an hour it took
yeah,
to find the
yeah,
guy
yeah,
guilty.
yeah.
It would take weeks
Hmm.
nowadays, perhaps even a month in a court. I think. Carry on. So I interrupted your slides. Sorry about that. Carry on.
Yeah, I just wanted to give the
Mm.
meaning of it, yeah, in my
Yeah, yeah,
simple
yeah,
words.
yeah. Mm.
It looks like, for example, if it happened in these days, yeah, in
Mm.
nowadays,
Yeah.
it will take more time just to find out some extra details, just to ask about of evidence of neighbors, yeah,
Mm.
sort of like this, yeah, things. For example, in nowadays, if it was, yeah,
Yeah, overall, I'd say that's the meaning. Yes,
yeah, that's the
overall.
mean.
Yeah. But
Okay.
it's not quite what this sentence says, though. It's not quite what this sentence is
Oh,
saying. Because you added in the neighbours, etc., etc. You added in a bit
yeah.
more detail. So to be absolutely precise,
Okay.
it doesn't really say exactly what you said, but it's the same overall meaning. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
So I suppose so you're giving so in terms of comprehension, you're saying about the overall story up to this point, really.
Mhm.
But this particular sentence is just saying if it happened today, it wouldn't be a simple matter. That's how I would write it.
Ah,
Or it
yeah,
wouldn't be
just
as simple, maybe.
if it happened today, it wouldn't be as simple.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Because if it only took 31 minutes, that to me sounds like a very simple trial.
Trial. Okay.
Trial, yeah.
Trial.
Trials normally happen in a court of law, so that's really what they're saying. A trial in a court of law.
Hmm. Yeah, okay.
That's what the word trial. But they've missed out the court of law. They're just saying trial, and that's what most people would say, I think.
Tony, about the title of this paragraph,
Hmm.
a marriage gone horribly wrong.
Yes,
It,
that's quite well
but
read. Mm.
they emphasize his marriage, yeah, that it actually ended very bad.
It's not saying ended, really. The title is just saying a marriage has gone bad. A marriage has gone bad. So if you have a relationship with somebody, hopefully most of the time it's a good relationship. You get on well with them, you know lots of things about them, and they know things about you. It could be friends, it could be a marriage. Here, of course, it's a marriage. So that's one going well, but it can also go wrong. In other words, it can go badly. And if it goes horribly badly or horribly wrong, it's going very, very bad or very wrong. So
Oh,
horribly is just
okay.
emphasizing how bad it is. It's very, very bad.
Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah,
is not saying what's happened. We don't know if
yeah,
it was violent. It may be they
yeah,
just hated each other. It sounds like they hated
yeah.
each other when you say horribly wrong in some way. To me, anyway, but it's not
Um,
clear what it's saying.
yeah, there is no ended, yeah, because it's gone.
Mm.
It's, I mean, yeah, different,
Yeah,
yeah,
this is a little bit of a phrase, I would say, as a phrase. All those words together that's highlighted there as a title. That's a
yeah,
phrase that gets used quite a bit. I suppose when someone's getting divorced,
yeah,
often it is the case, not always, but often it is the case that the marriage has gone wrong in some way, and some of
yeah.
them have gone horribly wrong.
For example, if we
Mm.
change go like a done, it's like we can say ended, yeah, like
Um,
marriage has
it,
done horribly wrong.
it's
No?
more. I suppose is it, we wouldn't. You wouldn't actually say that. No, it's not proper. It's not proper. Not quite the correct English. I would say
Oh yeah.
the syntax is wrong. But as a phrase, that exists. That exists as a phrase. It's quite common in this sort of situation. So it's not just used here. They haven't
Mm,
just made up this phrase for this one article. It's used many times before. It's been used many times in the
mm,
similar situations. And the gone necessarily saying is not saying, oh, the marriage is over, but it probably is. It's just a way that the phrase is using. So when you say gone, you might say, oh dear, so you could say it's gone bad. You could say that, oh, these sausages have gone bad. So the sausages
mm.
still exist, but they've
Okay.
gone. So it means they smell, or might be dangerous to eat them because they might be poisonous at that point.
Mm,
Does that make sense?
okay.
So
Yeah.
he's not saying that they're dead necessarily, or that they've been destroyed, or not, or been. You know, it's just a way of saying something that's happened to it when you put the word "gone" in the sentence like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Marriage
Yeah.
still
I
exists.
got it.
The marriage still exists, but it's not in a good state.
Not in a good state. Yeah. Yeah. Not in a good relationship, for example. Yeah.
Yeah. So perhaps we try to reverse it maybe. So a marriage, so not gone, but going very
Go.
well. A marriage going very
Um,
well.
yeah. A marriage going
Going.
very well. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I've
like
never heard that.
opposite of it.
I've never heard that phrase. We just made it up. But
Yeah.
just to try to help to understand this one, to put it in the other
Y-
direction, it going
y-
brilliantly. This marriage is fantastic. This marriage is going very well. Yeah. So that's the opposite meaning.
Yeah. Yeah. Other direction we can say as well. Yeah. Like other
Yeah.
direction, opposite. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'd be an odd thing to say. I've never heard anyone say that, but yeah.
Ah.
So, yeah, I will say,
Mm.
don't go around saying it to people. Your marriage is going very well. What do you mean by that? What do you
Mm.
know? What do you know that I don't know? Probably start a fight
It
or
can be
something.
like a, like a tight joke. Your
Yeah,
man,
yeah. Maybe it will develop into a joke. Yes.
yeah, it can do, yeah.
So let me
Okay,
just read it back to you then.
okay, yeah.
I guess this is the first line here then. So the public obsession with the case is sustained by ambiguities. Ambiguities. So ambiguities again is basically sort of peculiarities. But when something's ambiguous, so this is ambiguities. This is the plural of lots of things which don't really, I would say, don't really add up. Is the more accurate meaning of that word. So lots of things that don't quite add up, don't quite make sense. So
Okay.
that's what
Uh,
I'm. Are you okay with that word? Does it make
uh,
sense?
uh, Yeah, you said like add up, yeah? Add up.
Yeah, that's. Let's put it in the dictionary then. So ambiguities, things that don't quite add up, things that don't quite make sense. It's a bit like It's a bit like
Mm.
ambiguities.
Pe-
It's a
pe-
bit like bizarre. I meant to say. Oh, blast! What have I done? I'm always doing this sort of thing. It's a bit like
Peculiar, yeah, you said
yeah.
before, yeah.
But it's a little bit further than that. So ambiguities. I've got the word. There we go. So it's normally you would use it in the sense of um things a little bit out. Things aren't quite the way they should be. So not so much bizarre, but it's in the similar direction. So it's things aren't quite right. So bizarre, they're very peculiar with bizarre. This is very strange. When it's ambiguities, it's a bit like, oh, this lady was murdered, but there's no murder weapon here. That's an
Okay,
ambiguity.
like
Oh,
unclear
she's been. Does
situation, yeah.
that make sense? So there's no doubt she was murdered. She's lying there, let's say, and there's blood on the floor, but there's no murder weapon. It's a little bit of an ambiguity, you could say, maybe. Or maybe she was murdered inside a locked room. So
Mm.
how did the person get out if the room's locked? So that's a bit more of an ambiguity, I would say. It's not quite bizarre. So let's listen to how they say ambiguity. Anyway,
Ambiguity.
ambiguity. So if you say verbal noun, so if you say that there is ambiguity in something, you mean that it is unclear or confusing. Yeah, confusing is quite good. Or it can be understood. Or it can be understood in more than one way. Well, that's interesting. I never thought about that. So if there's an ambiguity, you're saying it can also be that it can be understood in more than one way. That's interesting. So let's look at the
Mm.
examples. There is considerable ambiguity about what this part of the agreement actually means. So some sort of an agreement has been written down. This sentence seems to be saying people don't understand what's been written. That does happen quite a lot. So the next one says students sometimes struggle with the ambiguities of the English language. So the English language is a bit odd at times, doesn't really make exact sense sometimes. And so you can say it's ambiguous or ambiguities.
Mm. Mm. Yeah.
So the author's style, so some sort of a writer, so the author's style suggests a certain ambiguity in his moral view. So his view of life is a bit ambiguous, a bit unusual, a little bit odd, maybe. So if you say that there is an ambiguity, yeah, ambiguity, isn't it? Ambiguity in a situation or in someone's character, you mean that it contains several different qualities or attitudes which do not fit well together. Do not fit well together. So an
Mm.
example of that might be this person is a vicar of a church, and yet he's having an affair with two ladies. That's
An affair,
ambiguity.
okay.
Clearly shouldn't be doing that, one would imagine.
An affair, okay.
You'll be very unhappy with the person. So,
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I would say it's
inconsistency is another way of looking at it, isn't it?
okay.
Inconsistency.
Yeah, like a lack of clarity, yeah, we can say as well. Like
Um,
uncertainty, yeah.
uncertainty is better.
Uh,
When you say
uncertain,
unclarity, things aren't clear. Things aren't
yeah.
clear. That's what
Um,
so it's almost as if we don't have all the information. That might be the case, but
um,
if you're going into where there's a murder, the person's definitely been murdered, there's definitely blood on the floor, but there's definitely no murder
yeah,
weapon, no murder weapon.
exactly.
So everything's definite, everything's clear, but it's why it's confusing as to why there's no murder weapon, let's say. But I'm just making that up. I don't. Perhaps there was a murder weapon in our story.
Yeah, I got
So
it. Yeah,
we're talking about ambiguity in the sense
ambiguous.
that
Yeah.
uh, the person has disappeared, that he murdered his nanny, but it's not clear why did he murder the nanny. There's no reason. There doesn't seem to be a reason. And my understanding was that Lady Lucan was beaten up in the same fight that this unknown man had with the lady. So he beat her up, but he killed the nanny, but not the wife. So what's this about? Well, it's
Is
just it doesn't make any. There's no real reason. There's no obvious reason to my mind why he killed the nanny. I can understand if he's getting on badly with his wife. He had a really bad argument with her. He got violent and he killed her. I can understand that. But he killed
did
another
you
lady
did you say
and injured her. Does that make sense? Yeah.
yeah, did you say, Tony, that his original plan was kill his wife? Yeah.
Well, well, you do hear that quite a lot.
Yeah.
If a married lady has died, I'm sure the police would think, "Hey, let's interview the husband." And between all of them, they would gab. I bet it's 80% chance that the husband did it. I'm
Yeah.
guessing. I don't know. So
Yeah.
yeah, but he didn't kill the wife. He killed someone else. It doesn't. To me, it's crazy. Something absolutely doesn't make sense here.
Yeah, it's gonna be probably in another in the next theory. Yeah, because
The next theory, yeah.
I quickly look and yeah, it was
Oh,
mentioned.
you've cheated. No, it doesn't. Yeah, carry on. Carry on. Oh, so you know a little bit of this. I think you know more about this than I do. I think you.
Yeah,
When I spoke to the
probably.
guys on the walk yesterday, they seem to know more about it.
Yeah, and he also mentioned, yeah, Tony, yeah, from last walk,
Mm.
mentioned that his not his children's
Oh, yeah.
nanny, yeah, uh, had a kid, had
Mm.
a child as well, and I thought that this child could be a son of Lord Lucian, but he said no, it's not like this probably.
Yeah, I think I heard you say that actually.
Yeah,
So it's Lord Lucan. Lucan. So it's a K. The
yeah.
C's a K sound.
Yeah.
And so the lady who was murdered was the surname is Rivet on the screen now. Rivet.
Mhm.
And she was the nanny, and normally a nanny is looking after a child. But yesterday, I think Tony said that the child they were looking, it was the child that they were looking after who was in the house when this
Mhm.
lady died. It was that child that went looking for Lord Lucan. It was that child in the house
He
where his
was
mum was
looking.
murdered. It was that
Oh,
child there in the house where the crime happened.
but it was his child or it was her
Yeah,
child.
well, that's what I didn't understand. So Tony
Um,
said it was her Rivet's child. It was nothing
oh,
to do with Lord Lucan.
oh my
It wasn't
God.
Lucan's child. I assumed that it was. That was my mistake. I didn't realise that. So yeah,
Mhm.
we haven't actually got onto that. So maybe
Yeah,
we'll say
yeah,
that. I
maybe
think that might
the
be next week. Actually, that might be next week.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's British history. I think you've read this bit, haven't you? This bit.
And,
So maybe I could just finish that bit
yeah,
there,
yeah.
if you want.
Okay, then yeah. Let's do it again. Yeah, because
I forget where we got up to. Oh, because I lost my place, didn't I? I think, it got to unsolvable. Oh, we've read this bit before, haven't we? Yeah, of course. Yeah, the
yeah,
screen
this is
suddenly
a
jumped.
marriage. Yeah,
So this is the bit you read here, this one here, isn't it?
yeah, a marriage gone horribly wrong.
Yeah. So in other words, a marriage gone badly wrong.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose you could say, so when you're saying gone, it's basically say it's happened in the past sense, in the sense that it isn't going to get better. It's gone badly, and there's no way that this can be recovered so that the marriage can be repaired. Just like the sausages, if sausages go bad, they go smelly, perhaps they're too old, perhaps they weren't put in the fridge or something. You could say the sausages have gone bad. Gone bad. They
It's
cannot eat.
actually became, yeah, we can say in some way, no?
That's the meaning of it, yeah, of
Meaning.
become bad. But you could never say that because it's poor
Yeah, yeah.
semantic, it's poor syntax. I should say. Okay, um, so I'll read again. So I was just reading, got to ambiguities, didn't I? So the public, I was just about to say obsession. So you're okay about obsession, I imagine, are you?
Obsession. Yeah, it's like a strong desire to find out more about
Something, yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, you could be obsessed about a person or a thing or a TV program.
Yeah, like a fun, yeah, if we can say some fun, obsessive
Yeah, yeah. That is, people do get. I get
of some
obsessive
stuff.
about things
Yeah,
that I enjoy. That's true.
yeah,
Some guys obsessive about computer games. I
yeah,
must play
yeah.
that computer game and finish that level.
Like addicted in some way, no?
It's a
But
kind of an addiction.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. It
addiction.
probably is an addiction. Yeah, addiction. That's it. But I suppose an obsession is a little bit more. Uh, it sounds a little bit more acceptable than an addiction. I suppose no. You might sort of jokingly say, "Oh, I'm obsessed with something."
Mm,
If you say I'm addicted to it, it sounds like it's out of control. I suppose an obsession is heading that way, and maybe just little with only a short distance away from an addiction. But that's
yeah.
what I would say. So maybe we'll look at that later. So I'll carry on then. So the public obsession with the case is sustained by ambiguities, so things that don't add up. The facts are just enough to make a narrative while leaving hugely tantalizing areas of doubt. So you're okay with narrative, are you? Me with narrative.
It's really narrative. It's narrative,
Narrative.
narrow.
So often with stories, you think about narrative. So you could say a narrative is basically sort of a story in a way, pretty much.
Like a story. Yeah. Okay.
You could almost put story in there, have pretty much the same meaning. Not exactly, but it's nearly there. So sometimes when you read, sometimes in a book or a story or something on television, you might have a narrator. It's a similar word, narrator, narrative. It's a similar word, similar meaning. So a narrator is someone who tells you the story.
Okay.
Narrator. Makes sense. So
Yeah. Okay. I got.
so making a narrative. I suppose really it's a story that makes some sense and holds together to some degree, I suppose. So it's enough to make a narrative or story, let's say, while leaving hugely tantalizing areas of doubt. So if something's tantalizing, this is the other side of ambiguities. So when things don't add up, in our minds, we want to make them add up because that doesn't feel right. And that's part of tantalizing. So if something doesn't feel right and you want to sort it out, we tend to find that tantalizing. So it's a little bit like being teased about something. Oh, I find this really teasing. I have to sort this out. I find this it's tantalizing to the point of being annoying. Does that make sense?
I like it. Yeah.
Sort of. Okay, let's put it differently. Let's get the real. So it's tantalize, I suppose, or tantalize. Well, they got a Z there. Strange. So yeah, did I say teasing? Yeah, so teasing or making one frustrated, especially by presenting something greatly desired but remaining inaccessible or unobtainable. So the unattainable stuff is we want to get the solution. We want to find the correct answer. So as you look at the Lucan story,
Yeah.
the story we're told is, oh, he's the murderer because he was found guilty. But as I'm looking at it, and hopefully as we're looking at it, it doesn't seem that simple. There's another story here which hasn't been told, and we're looking for the untold story. And that's the tantalizing or the teasing bit. And it makes you frustrated when you don't get what you want. I want the correct story. So that's tantalizing.
But
Does that make
I
sense?
can't understand why it make us frustrated.
Normally, we want to find out the answer to things.
Yeah.
If we're sort of told a story and we only told half the story, we might say, "Oh, well, come on, finish the
Mhm.
rest of the story,
Ah,
Tony." You might
okay.
say,
Okay.
"Finish the rest
Yeah.
of the
Okay.
story," and that's the situation here. Or sort of here is that we're told that he's the murderer.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
we've already told, well, okay, we could understand if he murdered his wife because he didn't get on well with his wife. His marriage was going badly. But he didn't murder
Mhm.
his wife. He married another lady. He didn't murder his wife. He someone, but we don't. It's only her. It's only the mother, only the wife that says. I think I'm right in saying that it was him that he
Yeah.
did it.
Yeah. Now I got it. Yeah.
From memory, I think it is. She wasn't 100% certain because it was in the dark. All this happened in the dark.
Yeah.
No, it never
It was
mentioned.
in a
I'm pretty sure.
basement.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, you remember that? That rings a bell to me. Yes, it was in a basement. Yeah, so we haven't really gone over the facts of the story. We've very briefly gone over it. So the
Yeah.
problem is the BBC is assuming we already know the outline of the story, but we haven't got to that bit yet. So maybe I should have done that really already. Okay, so what did we do? I think
Tantalizing. Tantalizing.
tantalizing areas of doubt. So the areas of the doubt are the bits
Yeah.
that don't add up, you could say. So
Yeah.
we're doubtful about who did the murder. I'm not convinced it was him because he murdered the wrong person, basically. Okay. And
Mm.
so this has been said or suggested by this lady, Rosemary Hill. I've not heard of her.
Mm.
So this word here is historian. So when you read it out, I think I can't remember what you said. It says something different now. So it's sort of a
Mm.
job title, sort of, if you're an historian. Should you just say it's a
Yeah.
historian?
Historian.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. So it's someone who studies history, basically, studies the past. That's the meaning, historian. And often people are historians of a particular period of time, perhaps the
Mm.
Victorian period or some other period in the past. I'm
Yeah.
guessing that she might be an historian to do with this story of perhaps the 1960s or 1970s. I think the murder happened in the 70s, wasn't it? 75 or 74, I think the murder happened. Okay, so areas of doubt suggested the historian Rosemary Hill. If there were a number, so if there were a murder trial today, the verdict wouldn't necessarily be a done deal, argues von Tunzelman. I think maybe we'll leave it there because it is quite difficult, this isn't it, this story.
Yeah, but we will continue with the
Next time.
story on Monday. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
definitely. Next week. Yeah.
yeah, next week. Yeah.
Um,
Actually, it's made me curious. Yeah, to find out
yeah,
what is next.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, you're finding it a little bit tantalizing, in other words. You're not
Yeah.
obsessed with it yet, but you're a little bit
Okay.
tantalizing.
Tantalizing.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's stop the class there then, if I can find the right button. Stop the recording, I should say.